Today you're going to hear from Mr. Collipark, Rick Beato, Matt Still, and Jason Kingsland. All four of these guys are guys I've known for years. I really respect. They do great work. They're going to be giving some advice. They're going to be talking about why they've been successful and also be talking about what it is that still drives them. Check it out. Why have you been successful?
I can outwork anybody. I mean, pretty much. That's, I always joke with my friends that are in their 20s that, man, I shouldn't be able to outwork you. I'm pushing 60 years old. Come on, get it together.
Yeah, same here.
You know, I'm just incredibly determined.
You definitely can outwork me. I know that. But
well, don't get too tied up in a record by, always having to convince the band of things. You're not going to just make one record. You're going to make a lot of records in your career.
Yeah.
You don't want to burn a relationship over a project.
Wow.
Because ultimately the bands have to be happy, or the artist needs to be happy with their project. Even if you don't agree with them, if they're happy, ultimately that's where it is. Because I used to argue with people, you're wrong about this. You need to do this. It should be like this. And if they don't enjoy working with you, then what's the point of it? If they don't like what the outcome is, add your own vision, fight for things that you can fight for, that you convince them on. But once you hit a wall, move on.
First and foremost, your work ethic. I don't have any sympathy for somebody who complains or has anything to say if their work ethic is lacking. Like the person who gets up and works 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 and works. Even with me, when I'm in my slumps, creatively or whatever, I know if I can force myself to get up and come to the studio, even if I just sit here, that's a form of work, as opposed to me just sitting at home, just, oh shit, man, I'm in a writer's block. And so work ethic for me comes before anything.
You said something to me in the studio once. I think it might have been, I was probably just being an asshole one day, because I remember you just looking at me and saying, hey man, anybody will work with you if you have a hit or just had a hit, but they'll keep working with you if they like you. And I was thinking, like, is he trying to tell me something? What did I do?
People got to want to work with you. And as simple as that sounds, if people don't like you, like if I go in the studio with somebody and they're assholes, even if I just suffer through that session, I'm never coming back. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So people got to want to work with you, whether that's your track record, your reputation precedes you. That's the thing. Nobody's going to be hot forever.
Yeah.
Nobody. I don't care who you are. And in those down times, what's going to bring you up out of that slump is people still fucking with you. So that's your relationships.
Mine, I feel like it's probably a little twofold. One, there's a component of showing up very consistently. Showing up and doing the work and being unafraid to keep on working, right? I've allowed myself to work 7 days a week early in my career, 7 days a week, 16 hours a day, no problem. And that's just what my life was. I'd say that the secondary side of that is trying to maintain a good relationship with my clients, because where my success has really been the greatest is word of mouth and people individually speaking up on my behalf and saying, like, that guy's great. We need to get this guy on our session. Like I was just the session bassist on this. He's got to do my record now. And that's where my greatest wins have been, is by people interacting in a minor capacity and then proving to be a major client of mine on down the road.
I think there are a lot of factors as to why some people are successful and others are not. One, you have to get along with the artist. The artist has to like hanging around with you.
Yeah.
There are some engineers who are not very, and not that I've got the best personality in the world, but I think I'm okay to hang around with. People want to hang around with you. You have to have good ideas when you're in the studio. As a producer and engineer, you have to manage the time well in the studio. You have to keep the session moving forward, and you have to have a good vision of where you're going. I try to be prepared for everything so that no matter what happens, I have an alternate plan. I have an alternate path that I can take with something. I try to think ahead of the session. And, there are times, where I'm working and I will have a technical issue, but the artist will never know it because I don't let them know it. I'm prepared for that, and I can quickly change gears to something else, and it does not interrupt their creative flow at all.
What advice do you have for young engineers, producers, and mixers that are coming up in the business?
Here's my number one recommendation. Do not try to off the rip attach yourself to a certain style of music. You're not a rap engineer. You're not a classical engineer. You're not a rock engineer. I want to be an avid lover of music. And that if I hear a great rap song, if I hear a great country song, or if I hear a great rock song, it's all the same thing to me. I want to be involved with great. That will do more for me than any other thing. Like I've made some really avant-garde, weird free jazz records. No fucking money. I mean, obviously no one's trying to listen to, some brilliant musician wank off with a ring mod. I learned more from doing free jazz records for $100 in an afternoon where I'm recording live to 2-track than I did from 20 weeks of doing the same kind of records I had been doing, right? You've got to put yourself in different environments with different contexts that challenge you in new ways to be able to become, even if you want to live in one planet, if you want to be doing mostly rap, you got to be able to go do other things, because when you go back to reapproach rap or whatever your home planet is, you're going to think of it totally differently and have so many new cool ideas. And your clients are going to think that you're actually innovative because you're ahead of what everyone else is doing. You're bringing new things to the table, not just well, it's the chorus, so I guess we'll use the 8th note delay now, right? Learn something new and get outside of your comfort zone to do so.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I'd been doing a lot of rap music for years and then went into bluegrass. And I found that a lot, I spent so much time focusing on low frequencies in rap music. Can't tell you how much that helped me in bluegrass, dealing with a stand-up bass, which is one of the hardest things to record and mix properly. Because I think a lot of people just turn the bass down because it's such a pain in the ass. But I want that bass up there punching on every note. Yeah. So I've come up with some kind of wacky techniques to get it. But I learned all that from working on rap music and just having to, focus way down on just the low end. And it's this weird thing that I didn't realize that skill was going to translate over to bluegrass.
Work on anything and everything that you can. Growing up, I listened to rock music, rock and some pop, but that was mainly, Led Zeppelin, The Who. Those were the bands that I would jam out to, just rock anthem stuff. But when I started to learn how to engineer, it's none of that music was being made here, and it was all urban music, it was all R&B and rap. I didn't know thing one about R&B and rap, but I knew I wanted to be an engineer. So you know what? I needed to learn how to engineer R&B and rap, and I fucking figured it out. At the time, it wasn't music that I necessarily connected to. I've grown to love the genre. I love R&B and rap. There's a ton of great music, and I can listen to it now with an appreciation that I couldn't when I first got into the industry, because I just made myself embrace that genre and that style of music. And so often I will go speak to schools and students and young people, and they're like, well, I want to do this kind of music. I want to do that kind of music. I'm like, well, that's great. Just do whatever kind of music you can. If someone is willing to pay you to turn knobs and engineer, take the gig. And no matter what you're working on, don't fall into the trap of judging the creative validity or whether or not it's good or not of whatever you're working on, because you never know. You are not the arbiter of what is going to be the next big hit. There were several projects that I worked on that I was like, man, this is going to be awesome. Leaves the door, you never hear it again. It's gone forever. And then there are other projects where I was like, man, who is paying money for this crap to get recorded? Whatever, okay, I'll record it, but this isn't going anywhere. Next week, top 10. You cannot judge someone else's creativity If it was easy to figure out what was going to be a hit, everyone would be doing it.
There has to be some type of flexibility with what you're doing. I think that helps. If you're going down the road with a song, if you're trying to decide on a project to do, whatever it is that you're doing, you kind of do it and then look at what happens from it, and then you move from there. Mm-hmm. I never think too far into the future about what I'm doing at the time or what a song needs or whatever it is. I react just like improvising. You play an idea and then you say, okay, where does that idea lead you to? Does it lead you to someplace interesting? Oh, maybe that wasn't so good. Or, just kind of experimenting and don't be so rigid in where you think things should go.
I think with me and a lot of people, like when I was younger, definitely, and a lot of artists, they're looking at the mountaintop, but they're not actually looking at their feet. And I felt like you come up with this idea what you think your life and your career is going to be, and if anything deviates outside of that, you don't do it. But for me, I've found that some of the biggest successes came from these weird things that I just kind of went off path and went and did this other thing that everybody thought was kind of crazy, but actually led to something huge.
Well, I mean, I can think for you going into rap music. That's
I think that was a bit of a shock for a few people.
Oh, I always thought with you, Billy, you had all these odd influences of bluegrass and progressive rock, and which are nothing alike. And then you go into rap, but you have this aesthetic aptitude that I always talk about, where you always know what's the right thing to do. You have taste no matter what it is. It doesn't matter what the genre is.
Thanks.
It's like being able to listen to it and say, okay, that sounds good to me.
Thanks.
That's a thing I learned from you was being flexible with, it doesn't matter what the genre is, just kind of understanding what a song requires or what a genre requires, and then figuring it out from there. As far as, my career, I have naturally just flowed from one thing to the next, whether it was from being a college professor into playing in bands, moving here, and then getting into production, and then starting my YouTube channel. I kind of fell into everything, and I just kind of let it go. I wasn't do something and see where it leads.
Artists and producers are so afraid to get taken advantage of, they miss opportunity. So they're scared to go in the studio with this person. They're scared to send a beat folder to that person. They're scared to sit in the studio and write because they've heard that such and such gonna steal the credits or whatever. You can't be afraid of getting taken advantage of to the point to where you turn down opportunity. I think that's the biggest thing.
Are there any things that you've yet to accomplish or that you're still trying to master that you haven't quite done yet?
Absolutely. I feel like that anyone that has the answer no, we're dealing with a very complex scientific and emotional task, summing the two of them together at one junction. Absolutely, you are learning something new every day. If it's 101 technical shit, I was on the phone this morning with another great engineer, Tom Tapley, talking about the 101 on the business side of like, how can I make budgets work, down to, have you tried mic and drums like this? And I hope my answer for that is always, no, I haven't. I need to try that because I need to learn something new, because it'd be a boring job without those kind of variables, right?
There's no one thing in particular that I'm driving for other than the fact that I'm always trying to learn new stuff. There's always new ways of approaching things. I'm always trying to learn the way other people do things. If you're not learning, you're stagnant and you're going to be on a decline. This industry is ever evolving. The ways of producing music, the ways of making music are ever evolving. And if you don't evolve with it, then you're gonna fade away. So I'm always trying to learn new production techniques, new ways that other producers and artists and engineers are approaching the way they do things. I'm trying to be open-minded to things that are counterintuitive to what I do, but may, for whatever reason, work. So I would say that's more what I do is I just try to stay in this perpetual state of learning.
Still to this day, I'm always listening to contemporary music because I just don't want to be that person that just is stuck in the past. Because, you got to get out of your comfort zone and listen to new stuff all the time.
I always kind of lived in a bubble and only listened to the records I liked. So you were forcing me to listen to bands that I didn't even fucking like. I mean, and there's a lot of rock that...
I didn't like them either, Billy. That was the thing.
Yeah, but the point is, I think you said something to me like, you need to quit listening to all your favorite records and start listening to things that you don't know anything about and that you're unfamiliar with and uncomfortable with, and maybe even some stuff you don't like, because that's what's going on out there. You really push me out that door. You forced me to get out of my comfort zone and also kind of put aside the idea of whether I even like it or not.
Yeah.
And also put aside the idea of how you define a good sound and a bad sound. I got to interview Jimmy Douglas once, the mixer producer, does done a lot of, I think he'd done stuff with Foreigner, and then he went on to work with Missy Elliott. And I interviewed him, and he said when he first started listening to rap music, which he later on, had a lot of success with, that he just thought the snare drums were ridiculous. He's like, this isn't a snare drum. But he had to change his mind about what is a snare drum. So you were kind of a, really instrumental in that to get me out of, listening just to stuff I like.
You can't work on projects if you can't talk to the people about the kind of music they like, if you're not familiar with it. So that was a big part of about being a producer. That's a part of any successful producer are people that keep listening to new music all the time, I think.
You know what's crazy? I know by other people's definition of success that I am successful. I don't feel it though. So that being said, I'm not finished.
Thanks for watching. I really hope you liked this episode. I've got more videos coming out with all of these guys, so make sure to subscribe. See you later.